like lands in this matchup. Game 1, lands feels like a heavy favorite, and in post-board games, they feel like lands is a slight favorite.
Right, so the big thing here, and it's possible that the Grixis Delver just had the play and then a chain of, say, Days into Wasteland, and if you just have that early pressure and you can disrupt the sort of setup from the lands deck, that's the way that you can end up pulling ahead.
Yeah, and because once you get into sideboards, things like these 3 surgical extractions from Joshua Everly, you know, those are live.
Right, and you end up in spots where rather than when your Dark Depths get surgical extraction or your Thespian stages get surgical extraction, you end up where you have to sort of build a prison, and it almost feels like a house of cards where if one piece gets taken out, the rest of it doesn't matter because Delver can pressure you on that axis.
All right, so going over where we're at, Casey Lancaster is at 9. Currently trying to get back a Punishing Fire with Grove of the Burn Willows. He has a second Grove of the Burn Willows to protect this from something like surgical extraction.
Right, so now it's a question of if Everly can surgical and then, say, surgical again. Or if he's just trying to fight over the mana payment from Lancaster.
And it looks like the surgical is going to work on Punishing Fire card in Casey's hand is Mox Diamond. That's a big deal to get those out of the hand.
Exactly, it took a second surgical extraction here.
Yeah, double surgical.
Well, luckily Lancaster has 2 red mana floating.
Yeah. And he'll need an answer fast. It was just going to be then 2 hits off the Skirmag Angler should do it.
Exactly. So the big thing that Lancaster is looking for here is something like Maze of Ith.
Right.
That's the thing that could shut down this Skirmag Angler.
1 card in hand from Everly. 1 in Lancaster, though that one's a Mox Diamond. And yeah, Casey has a draw step coming up. The weird shuffle there where you shuffle your own deck and after, you know, you surgical someone, so then they shuffle your deck, then you shuffle your deck, then they get to cut it.
Oh yeah, it's
pass.
Oh yeah, it's a team sport. And
it's down to 4. Does Casey have the draw?
Show me the money. Well.
2 Mox Diamonds, that's not going to do it. Joshua Everly takes care of business. And 2-0 for Grixis Delver means everything now rides on the match between Evan Whitehouse and Jeffrey Carr.
Got there right in the nick of time. Pocket Moxes are not very good on turn 100.
No, the double surgical extraction. So Mono Red Phoenix versus Dredge. Jeffrey Carr's Mono Red Phoenix took the first game. They're currently in game 2. We're going to pop over there. And that's a lot of cards on the table. That's all right. This hello, Dredge.
To be fair, it doesn't look like the Phoenix deck is that far behind in terms of how many cards are. Ooh, double amalgam.
Yeah, we will get life totals in a second here. Not at 4, nor at 20. We'll get an update in a sec. And that's going to be the question, right, is just how much burn has been done. We see cards like Lava Spike in the graveyard for Carr.
Right, and this was a very heads-up play from Whitehouse where he held up his Shriekhorn until, with this Narcomoeba trigger on the stack, then he milled himself.
Okay.
And it paid off in the biggest way possible.
2 prized amalgams?
Flipped over 2 prized amalgams from his library with a Narcomoeba trigger on the stack. So then the zombies see the trigger from the jellyfish.
Right.
Excuse me, the illusion. That's not a jellyfish. Let's be very clear.
It really, yeah.
It's
definitely not a jellyfish.
It's even worse in the Guilds of Ravnica one, where it actually just looks like a Man-O-War.
So Bloodghast attacked. It was a block by the Bedlam Reveler. 8 and 12 are our life totals here. A land from Whitehouse gets back those 2 Bloodghasts, casts Stinkweed Imp as a blocker, and then brings back 3 amalgams.
Everything's fine. This is fine.
Look, he paid for a Stinkweed Imp. Very fair card.
I love Stinkweed Imp. Don't hate. Do you know how good a 1/2 Death Touch is against creatures?
Yeah, well, it's triggered Death Touch.
Oh, that's true.
That's very relevant.
It also has to be combat damage. That's why it's not eroded to Death Touch.
It does have to be combat damage,
yeah,
right?
You couldn't put, say, a Thornbite staff on it and make it work.
Ooh, that sounds good. You Flame Fusillade it.
I know. That's why Stinkweed Imp doesn't see play in other decks.
Arclight Phoenix. Cast from hand for Carr.
blocker style.
Yeah, that's once you start doing that out of a mono red deck, that's not a good sign.
Oh yeah, this is like when you would see someone block with a Dragon Lord Ashitai, and you're kind of going, ooh, this.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Top 4 here, a Creeping Chill will drain Carr down to 9. Another Bloodghast in the yard is Evan's Dredging Golgari Thug.
This is kind of the point where
Yeah.
it's over. It's over. When you see this many cards in the graveyard and they're getting to untap with this much in play, you need to have like an Ensnaring Bridge or some lock piece, or you're dead.
Wait, so Carr was down to 9. Evan shows a land out of hand, which means that Bloodghast he'd milled over will have haste. Just 2 blockers for the pair of 3/3s still means 9 damage comes through, and they do go to game 3.
Right, and that was the spot where it looks like cards didn't have an adequate quantity of hate cards in order to stop what Whitehouse was doing. And if you don't have anything to stop Dredge, Dredge will kill you. This is why Dredge is so good on the weekend.
That is surprising, right? Normally against Dredge, if you're a mono red deck of any flavor and you get as many turns as we saw there, it's a good situation.
Exactly. You know, there was a Bedlam Reveler in play from your spells deck. I brought it up when we first cut over to say this might be closer than we think, because looking over at the mono red Phoenix's graveyard, there were a solid 15 cards in the graveyard and a Bedlam Reveler. It's not as if Carr didn't get to play.
Yeah, so the sideboard for Jeffrey Carr is 2 Abrade, 3 Blood Moon, 3 Rending Volley, 3 Surgical Extraction, and 4 Dragon's Claw.
So the things that we would be interested in seeing here, the Surgical Extractions are kind of a gimme. They're both anti-graveyard cards and anti-synergy cards, which Dredges both have.
But that's about it.
Right, and you can make a case for Blood Moon. Hear me out. So the big thing that it turns off is Life from the Loam and casting non-red spells from hand. Most of your enablers are going to be red. Those are your Cathartic Reunions, your Faithless Lootings, etc.
Right.
But Life from the Loam is how you charge up colossal Conflagrates.
Right. And you can still cast the Conflagrate, but it'd be a fair Conflagrate.
Exactly. It would be how many cards do you have in your hand? That's all. And then also it turns off, say, hard cast Stinkweed Imp from getting in the way of your Bedlam Revelers.
Yeah. It feels like out of a deck that's playing Lava Spike, that's more value than I want.
Yeah, it's a little bit tough, and it depends how long you're expecting to go in the game.
Right, Lava Spike's kind of a statement of saying, I don't really want to play Magic after turn 5.
Right, and so the problem you're going to run into here is both of these players are trying to be linear and aggressive, and it depends if they think they're trying to race, or if Carr is saying, maybe I need to slow down and be the control a little bit and apply pressure as I am disrupting what Whitehouse is doing.
Yeah, this happens in combo mirrors a lot. You have to figure what the average speed is for both decks, and then, are you the faster deck?
Exactly. This is why we see, say, Infect in Modern is so much stronger than a lot of the other combo decks, because it is both faster and disruptive.
So my first thought, hear me out, in this matchup is that their speeds are close enough that they think whether you're the faster deck changes on play versus draw. I think so. I wouldn't be surprised to see Carr perhaps Blood Moon on the draw, but not on the play. On the play, he could race.
Sure, and that one's a little bit tough, where it feels very bad to have Blood Moons on the draw, specifically because you want them to stop Evan from casting spells.
Right.
And if Evan has that extra turn by virtue of being on the play to just go about his business, that could make things incredibly iffy. And Creeping Chill can just throw all racing situations out the window.
Yeah, that's the card, which is the variable part when you talk about their racing speed. They seem to be pretty even here, but it's really going to hinge on how many Creeping Chills Evan manages to dredge over.
Exactly. And again, this is something where I'm not necessarily saying that Blood Moon is something we definitely want to be bringing in the deck.
Yeah, maybe, but that style of thought, right? The idea of if I can't race, I have to interact.
Exactly. This is something that Ross Miriam, for example, different deck, similar style, is playing the Is It Phoenix deck.
Right.
And he's been bringing in Blood Moons in this matchup specifically because his plan is to try to slow down to about a turn 4, turn 5 deck, and Blood Moon is very good at buying you that 3rd and 4th turn.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Is It Phoenix is a bit slower. That's why you're playing the blue cards, but more interactive. You get things like Thing in the Ice. That's something where, yeah, if you can transform your Thing in the Ice, you're fine against Dredge.
Exactly. And the big difference there is specifically just Thing in the Ice wanting to turn off Conflagrate from killing your threat and punching you. So there is a bit of a different dynamic there that could end up shifting Blood Moon to being better specifically in that matchup. It's just something that would not be particularly surprising if we saw Carr bring it in if he thought, say, his Lava Spikes, for example, were pretty weak against this deck because they aren't disrupting. And they line up poorly against Creeping Chill.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Cards and Cards deck. I think they probably Gut Shot has to leave before Lava Spike. So in a certain sense, just because he's mono red, I don't know if he can get off the Lava Spike plan, right? There's just too many other things to board out first. Right, when you're playing a monocolor deck, your amount of sideboard strategies is limited. You just have cards of one color.
Right. So it's possible that he's end up in the deck because there are cards he wants to cut.
Soulscar Mage to start the game from Carr, and here's 2 Lava Spikes, and the third Lava Spike is that sideways Soulscar Mage. Evan will go down to 11 and fetch down to 10.
It's no Monastery Swift Spear, but it's doing honest work.
This is one of the more honest starts, right? Soulscar Mage, spike, spike, attack.
That's basically a Soul Scarred and a Coddle, if you ask me.
For Evan, remember our Dredge player, he has top-8'd the Modern Open already in 2019.
Exactly. Also a finalist at our most recent Star City Games Invitational.
Yeah, currently 19th place on the leaderboard. So a good weekend. I mean, in 10-1, it looks like he's having a great weekend. You figure that'll get him that second. I was going to say that will get him the second bye, but hold on here. So Life from the Loam for Evan Whitehouse is being hit by Surgical Extraction. And if you look at Evan's hand, it's a pretty big deal. His hand was Prized Amalgam, Leyline of the Void, Cathartic Reunion. He was really hoping to dredge these loams when Whitehouse cast Cathartic Reunion.
Right, and this is the start that Whitehouse wants, but this is why we see these disruptive pieces as so effective against Dredge.
Right, so he discarded this loam to Cathartic Reunion and was hoping to dredge them with these draw steps, so now he's going to have to take 3 natural draws?
Yeah, you really need... Whitehouse needs to find a dredger in these 3 draws, or his draw's just going to be too slow.
Right, he has another reunion, so...
Exactly. Having another Cathartic Reunion is going to get his wheels spinning pretty quickly, right? That's a card that has the potential to just flip over half your library out of nowhere.
Right. In racing matchups, Cathartic Reunion is one of your best cards.
Exactly, and it's a possibility where, say, he rips a Stinkweed up here, he could just flip over a Creeping Chill or 2 and be right back in it. But without that dredger, he's going to have a lot of trouble.
And it looks like his draws were Shriekhorn, Narcomoeba, and one other card. I don't think he hit a dredger in them.
No, that looked like a Prized Amalgam. Ooh, that's actually a Monastery Swift Spear. I love this card.
So this one has haste. Monastery is the same card, but I like we do the same card. One has haste and one doesn't. Don't worry about it.
Hey, the other one does -1 counter things. Do you know how good that is against Kitchen Finks?
It'll be good against Kitchen Finks. So a Bolt sends Ian down to 7. The attack puts him down to 3. And even if he has the dredger, he needs to dredge over some Creeping Chills here.
This has always been a Burn fan.
Evan consulting with teammates here, knowing that this is likely his last turn.
Yeah, there's a spot where sometimes you just have to try to get lucky in order to not die, and that's the kind of out that Evan's playing to.
Yeah, I think, were we Shriekhorning just to see if we can find a chill? 2 cards he does not. It's a pair of lands.
Well, hope my opponent has stone nothing.
Yeah, if he has nothing, any prowess trigger will work. Faithless Looting from Evan.
Oh my gosh, is that a Creeping Chill as the next card?
Clearly the mistake was doing them in the wrong order.
Oh my gosh, what a dagger. Whoa. Do you think maybe should have shocked for this Blood Crypt?
And there's a Bolt in Carr's hand. With that Lightning Bolt, I don't even know if it matters. That wins through a Creeping Chill. He would have to have 2 of them.
Oh, that was an exceptional draw from Jeffrey Carr. Even looking outside of that disruptive piece, that was fast.
So let's count, right?